NFL Betting Blitz, week 3 of the NFL slate. Eric, I interrupted you and started the show right as you were asking me a question a moment ago. But on this show, we're going to preview all of your NFL week 3 games. And then at the end, we'll put together a little parlay play lineup. I put together a parlay with 2 props. And then I also dived into the free contest today. So I figure we'll take a look at those at the end of today's show. Remember, NFL Betting Blitz presented by ParlayPlay. If you go to parlayplay.io and you use our promo code NFL Betting Blitz, you can get some action today. You get some action every day, Eric. They've got contests for all sports and all ways you can parlay. What I like about them too, most places you can parlay, a prop. Does someone have, what's their over under of receiving yards or receptions? On these sites, they give you a lot more options. They give you fantasy points as an option to parlay. So what we love as handicappers and gamblers, more options, more chances for us to find maybe an advantage, to find an edge, to find some value.
Yep.
Eric,
I love it. Pay out. I like when you cash out, it's literally there within an hour.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's one of the important things that we all know as bettors. We got to make sure that our money is safe, secure, and that when we try to do the withdrawal and deposits, that we're good to go. We are going to be good to go today. Well, we have 15 NFL games that we're going to be discussing between today, Sunday, and Monday. So we're looking at the betting lines at DRF Sportsbook. We encourage all of you, if you are in the state of Iowa, sign up now for a DRF Sportsbook account. Use the promo code FAST350 for up to a $350 deposit match bonus. Anywhere in the state of Iowa, let your friends, let your family know. DRF Sportsbook. Eric, we start with your Detroit Lions. They are a 3.5-point favorite or so. This line's been pretty steady around this number for most of the week. The Lions come into this game 1-1 off a loss to Seattle at home last week. You got the Falcons 2-0. They come in off of a nice victory last week where they were down. They had to come back from 12 down. And what it did show us, I think it showed us a little side of Ritter that we hadn't quite seen yet. Some of his metrics don't look great. And early in that game, he had 2, maybe 3 interceptions that were dropped. But late in the game when they were down and he needed to make some plays, it was almost like the pressure kind of forced him into getting outside the comfort zone a little bit. Same thing with Arthur Smith. You can run. You can have a great game script, but then all of a sudden crap happens, right? Yep. And you got to make adjustments and you got to be ready to kind of call an audible. And they did that. And I was really impressed with Arthur Smith down the stretch, some of the clock management, going for it late to hold on to the ball more, to run more clock. So you know what? At this point, the Falcons haven't necessarily beaten the 2 best teams in the league, but they're 2-0 and they're in a really nice spot right now. And the way I look at this game, Eric, I think at over 3, I would lean Falcons and be on the Falcons side at over the half. I do think it's a nice spot for Detroit. And I think these are 2 teams that probably both feel like they should come into this game and have a legitimate chance to win this game. And for your Lions, just individually handicapping last week's game, if they don't turn the ball over, they win the game.
Yeah. Just kind of looking at Lions are really banged up. No Montgomery, they're going to need some 2 players on the offense.
The O-line too, right?
You look at what Falcons were able to do, 7.12 per pass attempt, 4.69 yards per carry. PFF says the Falcons have the best O-line to D-line matchup. Brown has a great matchup. Brown's got turf toe, so that's another thing. Lions are going to be losing without him. Well, he's going to play. He's not going to be 100%. Montgomery is out. Look, I didn't do anything with the side. The thing I did here is I did Kyle Pitts over 34.5 yards receiving. Lions give up the most yards per game to opposing tight ends, 87.5. Last week, they gave up 57 to Fant, 41 to Parkinson, and 35 to Disley. So all 3 tight ends in Seattle's system went over this total. Week 1, they gave up a 46 combined yards to the Chiefs tight end. Last time he played the Lions, he went 6 for 102. So I only did Pitts over the 34.5 yards.
We'll talk about one of my parlay plays a little later on, but and the one thing to just at least mention with Atlanta is Bijan Robinson, and this would be a great game like for Gibbs to come out and show that, hey, you know, there's a lot of buzz about Bijan, but I've got some ability myself. Man, this kid.
The thing with him though is the Lions just don't trust him.
They don't use, and they don't use him, and it doesn't seem like they're going to want to use him. That's going to be the Reynolds role today, most likely, right? He's going to be between the tackles, and you're going to use Gibbs differently. I think Atlanta is going to feel like they have to use Bijan more after last week and the last couple of weeks, because anytime you get this guy the ball, he's absolutely electric. He had 19 carries for 124 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, another 4 catches for 48. He picked up the first down and a big third down late in the game when they went on the drive to kick that game-winning field goal. And he has 10 rushes with at least 4 yards after contact. That's tied for third. He's awesome in rushing yards over expectation per attempt, number 3 graded runner. And he's only behind Mahomes and Tajay Spears. So 2 guys who don't even run all that much, right? As far as like volume running backs, he's the number 1 graded running back out there. This guy's an absolute stud. And you pointed out the offensive line. So unless that Atlanta offensive line gets really banged up, he should be able to run this way and have a good push all throughout the season. Like this should be something consistent for Bijan. We'll hit on why I like him more later in the parlay play. In the parlay play that I have. It's like I'm trying to think in the parlay or the parlay play. I guess I could say the parlay play bet I have, because it seems sort of weird when you repeat yourself quite often like that. Fun game in the NFC, and man, this is already like a big NFC game. This could absolutely be a wild card implications game, right?
Wild card, like, seeding,
tiebreaker. Yeah, these two teams both want to be in the playoffs this year in a wide open NFC. And for Atlanta to go 3-0, that would be huge for them to kick off the season.
Most teams, once they go 2-0, make the playoffs. You go 3-0. I mean, I hate to use the word guaranteed, but you're pretty much guaranteed to get it.
Especially in a weakened NFC where you feel like teams are going to come back to life a little bit. Okay, Eric, we go to our next game on the slate, Bills at Commanders. This one is around 5.5. It's moved about a point or so. It was about Bills minus 6.5 or so earlier on. So the Bills come off a big win against the Raiders last week. What was nice for them, they need to get more games like that, Eric, right? Where they don't have to have Josh Allen run a ton. They can hand the ball off and they can wear teams down like good teams do. That's how you beat a team you're better than. You run the ball. You don't have to put your quarterback in jeopardy over and over and over again. So that's a positive for me. This Commanders team, I got to say, it's not as like they beat Arizona and then they beat Denver, who has some problems themselves. But I did see a little something from them in spots. I mean, when you're down 21-3 on the road, it's not easy to come all the way back with a young quarterback, a guy who's only made a few starts in his career, but he is sort of a gunslinger guy. He's one of those types of quarterbacks who you could see that he pumps the rest of the team up when he's out there taking hits and making plays. And then you've got Brian Robinson Jr., who's a solid back. You've got Young, who returned last week, and the defensive line stepped up when needed. So I can't really get a feel for this game at the number. I'm not necessarily playing one side either or, but I will say the more I've watched Washington, especially the last, the second half of both games, that was really good work from Bieniemy with their offense. That, like, you saw them make adjustments, and maybe that's what he's able to do. Look at what's going on in the game at halftime, make a few tweaks, because both weeks against Arizona and then especially against Denver, they looked much better as the game went on.
I'll say this, with the troubles that Kansas City has had, it kind of looks like Bieniemy was a bigger piece of the pie than everyone's kind of realizing.
Because you know what, Eric, we all just say, oh, they got Andy Reid, they got Patrick Mahomes, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But it's a hierarchy, right? It's like a system that you get comfortable with where everybody's got their role. And then that's the way you operate for 5 years or however long. And then all of a sudden, one of those pieces is gone. It takes a little bit of a while to to get a new system, right? To get a new
and I mean,
comfortability going.
Because that report came out that the players felt that Bieniemy was being too hard on him. Maybe Bieniemy was the guy that kept that team in check, because that team with the Chiefs does get a little off cue, so to speak. But in terms of this, look, Allen, when he's like 6 or more, 57% against the number, 7 or more, 60% against the number. I did nothing in this game just because if Von Miller was playing, I definitely leaned toward the Bills. But with no Von Miller, I just don't think that the Bills are going to be able to get that pass rush they want. Howells looked good. He's doing a good job of running ball. Bieniemy's doing a little bit more RPOs. Yeah, I don't want anything to do in terms of side or anything in this game.
Let's keep rolling along. We go to Broncos at the Dolphins. Now, I played this one a little earlier in the week when it was at Broncos plus 6.5, because this to me is one of the real overreaction games of week 3, meaning Denver's 0-2, Miami's 2-0. Both of these teams could easily have the opposite records. Yep. Right? And that's what it comes down to for me. Denver has 2 games where they've lost close games, but should have won both and could have won both. And if they win both, this number is much different. Miami very easily could have lost week 1 against the Chargers. Then in week 2 against the Patriots, they're benefited from turnovers. And then late in the game, the Patriots have a chance to actually continue pushing the game, and they can't get an extra half yard. So,
I mean, and that was a sus spot too.
It was. So for me, Eric, I just look at this game and the national narrative overall. People right now, in my opinion, think Miami is a little better than they are. And people
favorite to win the
MVP. And in my opinion, people think the Broncos are a little worse than they really are. When you look at some of the Broncos like team metrics, the Broncos, what's been the most surprising to me is the defense. Their offense is the number 7th ranked offensive DVOA. Their offense has been fine. Sean Payton's come in and he's done what Sean Payton's supposed to do. He's made Russ look better. Russ looked really solid in week 1. It didn't seem like it because they didn't score a lot. Then in week 2, the first half of that game, that was one of the best halves he's played in probably 3 or 4 years. He was fantastic. Deep down the field, air yards. I think they leaned on that a little too much late. But when you're up 21-3, that's not the offense's problem that you lose that game, especially when you score 30 points in the game. It's the defense's fault. So that to me has been what's most concerning. And that would be my concern in this spot here, because they're going to have to go down to Miami, play, and, whatever the weather is like, it's humid, right? It's going to be a lot different than Denver. That would be my concern. From a standpoint of, though, how these two teams are valued, I think this number should be closer to like 4. 3, Miami favored by 3.5 or 4. Because on my power rankings and stuff, I just wouldn't have had these teams right now separated by that much. I really don't. So to me, I'm leaning on the Denver side here, and thinking the Dolphins just come into this game a little bit overvalued and a little bit overrated.
Yeah, I took Denver here. I got them at plus 6.5 too. Yeah, I'd even play them at 6. Teams that are in week 3 that are 0-2 and 0-2 ATS, 60% against the number. Teams that are in week 3 that are 0-2, 0-2 ATS that are dogs, 59 and 50 and 29, 63.3% against the number. Teams in week 3 that are 0-2, 0-2 ATS that are dogs on the road, 34 and 17, 66.7%. And then when you have teams that are 0-2 and 0-2 ATS playing a team that is perfect ATS, it has a perfect record, the dog. So the Broncos would be 59%. Look, this Dolphins defense can be scored on. Howard and Apple have graded out poorly. Broncos should be able to throw on them. Fins have traveled a lot the last 2 weeks. They were out in LA. They went down to Miami, up to New England, coming on a short week. Their defense was on the field for 71 plays. Also, Fins can't get any stops in the red zone. Teams are 6 for 7 scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Patriots had 6 drives inside the Fins zone last week, only came away with 3 points. Historically speaking, Wilson is good in the spot, 31 and 15, 68% against the number. As a Bronco, he's 6-2 ATS as a dog. Peyton, 46, 29 and 2, 61% ATS. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, there's this site that does luck rankings, and they have the Broncos as the most unluckiest team in the league. They lost the first week because of a missed field goal
and an onside kick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more than missed field goal.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? There were like 3 or 4 things that had to happen for them to lose that game. Yeah. So absolutely.
And then they were up big, and they whatchamacallit, Washington got back into it, and then they had the clear PI, wasn't called. I don't know. To me, this is just a good bounce back spot for Denver. I like I bet the 6.5, and that plus 220 on DRF is pretty tempting too.
They've lost 9 straight games they've won at halftime, which is just nuts to think about. We move to divisional game. Texans at the Jags. This number has moved in the last couple of days, Eric. It was closer to 9.5 just a few days ago, and I think you played it around that number, right? So you're on the good side of the number here. You've already gotten a couple points out of it on the Texans side. So the Jags, their offense is really struggling. They've allowed pressure on 25% of their dropbacks last week and 3 sacks. They only had 18 total first downs on 11 drives. Couldn't score a touchdown from first and goal on the 1. Lawrence was 0 for 7 in goal-to-go throwing, the most incompletions in a game in a goal-to-go situation since 2005. And I've talked about the offense a little bit. The defensive line has been a little disappointing to me. So when I look at this game, Houston's big concern right now is their offensive line, because that's where they're struggling. That's where they have the issues. And I don't know if the Jacksonville defensive line has been that good to where they will really, really be able to take advantage of that weakness. If that's the key matchup for me in the game. Like, if they still may be, right? They still may be bad enough. They still may not be good enough, but it won't matter, because sometimes if you don't have actual NFL starting linemen out there on your offensive line, you could be in serious trouble. But that's how I'm looking at it. I'm not sure if Jacksonville is the type of team to take advantage of the beat-up Houston offensive line. And what I like about this Houston team, Eric, I think they're very ripe for like a garbage backdoor type cover, the way that they throw the ball, right? Stroud's been completing. That's been the one thing about this offense that's actually been firing. I think he's one of the best as far as passing yards in the league, right?
4th most passing yards in the league.
Yeah.
I like the Texans here. I got it, as you mentioned earlier, at 9.5. Divisional dogs, 54% ATS in general. Divisional road dogs, the first 3 weeks of the season, that's 57% ATS. Divisional dogs getting 7 points or more the first 3 weeks. Look, 58%. And then I mentioned the trends. Teams that are 0-2 and 0-2 ATS in week 3 are 63 and 42. That's 60% ATS. I haven't been that impressed with this Jaguars team. They have some issues on the offensive line. Robinson is suspended. Taylor is with the Chiefs now. The rookie Harrison is way over his head. I expect Ryan, who is a known defensive genius, to come up with some game plan to exploit the offensive line issues. I haven't been that impressed with the Jags defense. They still have trouble getting to the quarterback. Secondary can be thrown on. Stroud has looked good passing the ball, historically speaking. Peterson doesn't cover big numbers. Anything over 3, he's only 41% ATS. I just like the matchup. Early divisional dog. Texans have been playing better each week. Haven't been that impressed with the Jags. I'll take the Texans here plus the I get at 9.5. Anything over a touchdown, I'll play.
I agree. I would be okay with it at 7.5 or above. We get to Colts at the Ravens. Ravens are a 7.5 point favorite in this one. Minshew mania. Minshew will be starting. Mar looked a little bit better last week. I think the offense, they're still kind of figuring some things out, but it was his highest passer rating since week 2 of last year versus Miami. They used Nelson and Flowers, Bateman, Andrews, kind of got everybody involved a little bit. My concern, though, with Baltimore is a few things. One, last week they're playing a team that's really been struggling right now. So while Baltimore looked good, I think some of it was the issues the Bengals have too, right? They also just have not looked great. 2, when you're laying a number like this at over a touchdown and you have so many injuries already, it's always going to raise a red flag to me. I don't really ever like playing teams that have a bunch of injuries that are laying a big number like this. And I think Minshew is sort of underrated overall. Vegas doesn't really underrate him in the number here, though, because it's like very similar to what it would have been with Anthony Richardson. And he's a guy that's just been there. He's not going to lead your team to a Super Bowl, but he's a very serviceable backup. And the offense will look a little bit different today. They'll be able to get the receivers involved. They'll probably be a little more accurate. I think it might be a decent day to maybe pick 1 or 2 of these really low-rated or low-valued Colts receivers in DFS. You know, maybe you look for one of them that are not going to be highly owned. I wouldn't be on the Ravens side laying this number. That's the way I'm not sure if some of the folks out there want to jump in on the Colts or if you have a number that's your line where you jump in. But at the Ravens, with all their injuries that they have, I just can't be laying type of numbers like this with them.
Yeah, I took the 7.5. I like the Colts here, just because the Ravens are going to be without 7 starters, and I really think that's going to wear on them. Colts defense is good. I think they're going to be able to get some push. Obviously, with Minshew there, Minshew is going to throw the ball a lot more. Historically, he doesn't target the tight end. Pittman leading the team with a 30.6% target share. He's averaging 12 targets a game. So if you're gonna target a player, obviously you want to target him. You do have that trend of fading teams that start 2-0 in week 3 ATS. I just really haven't been that impressed with this Baltimore team on their offensive side. I think this is too much. I know Kelly is going to be out with a concussion, but I still think Moss is going to be able to run on this team. And Lamar can't throw to the outside still. His balls still sail. I think this is too many points. I'll take the Colts here plus the 7.5.
Where do we head next, Eric? This game is hilarious to me because these two teams are just it's like almost like the Spider-Man meme, you know, where they're pointing at each other, they're looking at each other. Sort of feel like that about these two teams, the Chargers and the Vikings. The Vikings win 13 games last year, 11 of them by 1 score. And then this year, they're already losing all the 1-score games. Anytime anything is close, they're losing. The balls are just not bouncing their way. And then you have the Chargers, who are dead last in DVOA, 26th in defensive success rate, 30th in EPA per drive. They've got a defensive coach who has no identity. Like, if you're Brandon Staley, what's your identity? When you came in, you were the guy that was aggressive and would go for it all the time. And then, because it didn't work for you a few times, you flipped. And now he doesn't go for it at all. He had the ball on the 44-yard line last week, and they punted. 3rd and 4, they rushed and didn't even give Herbert a chance. And then on the defensive side, isn't he supposed to be like this dominant defensive coach, Eric? That was like his thing. Yep. Since he got there, so 2+ years, the defense is 28th in EPA per drive, 28th in success rate. These are his guys. This is his scheme. They're supposed to prevent big plays. That's what he's done. Since Staley arrived, they've given up completions of 30+ yards more than any other team in the league. Last week, they gave up plays of 75 and 49 to the Titans. Defense had 3 personal foul penalties. Man, I don't want to play this game and I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I do want to watch it. I'm very intrigued in this game. Something crazy is going to happen. I feel like it's going to come down to a field goal with the way that these two teams always play in close games, but I don't want to be on either side.
I'm going to say this. If you are playing the Millionaire Maker, everyone and their aunt's going to be playing this game. So this is the fade game. If you literally want to try to win the $1 million today on FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever, you don't want to include this game. Or if you do include this game, have it be someone that's going to be relatively low owned, like Madison, someone like that. If you're playing the cash games, you definitely want exposure in this because it's not going to hurt you. Because if someone goes off, you don't want to be behind the 8 ball. If this game doesn't go off, then it's no harm, no foul, because other people will lose the production too. Vikings regression is real. They're just constantly finding ways to lose the game. They can't run. I really think Madison is in a sneaky spot because the Chargers can't stop the run. Akers is coming in. He's going to be insanely overlooked. I think Madison's going to have a sneaky good game today. Chargers always find way to lose. Vikings offensive line has looked brutal. Herbert's 15, 30, and 2 ATS in the second half. In my eyes, you're going to be able to get plus money on both these teams at some point
in the game
of the game, and that's your best bet. Just wait until you get plus money, plus 150 or more on either side, and look to bet that the team with the ball last is going to win this game. I want nothing to do with it.
Patriots at the Jets. The Jets continue to start Zach Wilson, who just does not look good, unfortunately. He was graded quarterback 31 on the week last week. He had 3 turnover-worthy plays. They couldn't run the ball at all. All 3 of their backs combined for 24 yards on 10 carries. They are not seeming like it's great in the locker room right now because we got people tweeting stuff. We've got people turning their accounts off. We've got all sorts of weird things happening. But on the flip side, Eric, I mean, the Patriots have looked a little bit better. What scares me is that they don't score a whole lot to ever really be laying points on the road. Both of these two teams' defenses are excellent. That's why we can see this number. It's below 36 now. It's 35.5 for the total in this game. So low total. The Patriots are 0-2, and both of those games came at home. There is no way they can start 0-3 and expect to get into the playoffs. They just don't have any playmakers. Remember, wasn't this game last year the game where nobody had scored an offensive touchdown and they hit that punt return, right? Yeah, and to win the game. It almost feels like that's the type of game this is again. I have a really hard time having a strong opinion one way or the other in here.
To me, the squeaky wheel gets the ball. If you're going to look to do something in this game, look toward Breece Hall. He was tweeted out, only got 4 touches. Pats have a ton of injuries. I mentioned teams being unlucky. Pats are the bottom of the list was Pats, Broncos, Browns. Yeah, that was it. And so they're due. You look at it, 6 drives inside the Dolphin zone, only getting 3 points. Absolutely brutal. But at the end of the day, there's possible weather concerns. This is just going to be a sloppy game. I want nothing to do with it at all.
Saints at the Packers. This one's basically a pick 'em here. Packers slight favorite in this one. Aaron Jones will be playing today. And just right off the bat, that's huge, right? Just
no Jones. Jones is officially inactive.
Okay, so they officially announced him out. Okay, so then
Watson is that and, the offensive lineman.
So Eric, when we were talking the last couple days with Jones, does that change the way you look at this game now?
No. Excuse me, not really. You look at it, LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the NFL. ATS, he's 21-11 ATS at home, 65.6% against the number as a favorite, 19-11. 63% against the number, 4th most profitable coach ATS in all the NFL. Dennis Allen, 42% ATS, one of the least profitable coaches as a dog in the league. Carr for his career struggled on the road. And no, Watson is not playing. C-Spirit 22.
So that was a little difficult for them last week because we saw the same exact thing happen, right? Watson and Jones aren't around. So where they struggled was late in the game when they didn't have some of their go-to guys, right? They don't have Jones to help them there. Watson would be one of their go-tos. So now another week to get guys a little bit more familiar. What we saw with this team last week, though, they didn't necessarily have one guy they leaned on. They do have a lot of different pieces where they spread the ball around.
Yeah, they have a lot of young talent with Dobbs, Jalen Reed, Luke Musgrave. Carr historically has struggled on the road, more INTs, less passing yards, lower completion percentage. Saints traveling on a short week, traveling up to Green Bay. Look, A.J. Dillon's still back there. A.J. Dillon's going to be able to run. Saints gave up 5 yards of carry to the Panthers, 4.73 to the Titans. They only won those games because Tannehill and Young played awful. Jordan Love is having a sneaky good season. I think LaFleur is going to lean on A.J. Dillon, open up the passing game. get some good matchups. And the really way to attack this Packers defense is running the ball on them. But look, no Kamara, no Williams. You're going to be leaning on Miller, a rookie who's never played in the league before, and Jones, who historically hasn't done anything in his short NFL career. Maybe we'll see a lot of Taysom Hill in some quarterback power, but I just think this is a good matchup for the Packers. I'll take the Packers.
I'm throwing in one lineup, Miller, just as in case, right? It's his first game in the league. And today could be a day where if he looks good early, he could get a lot of volume, even coming off the injury, because they don't have a whole lot back there in the Saints backfield. So I like to play some of these younger guys or people that may be undervalued, because maybe Miller is better than what the perception of him is. He's going to have some opportunities today. If he does well, his price will skyrocket in the next couple of weeks. So that's something we should keep an eye on.
He's trying to get ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Shout out to C Spear, who's checking in with us today, and Sports Facts. Uncle Rico bailing on MSU, rocking the Miami hoodie over there.
Sorry on that game. It takes a special type of bad to be inside the red zone 3 times and have 6 points. A special kind of bad.
Brutal. Uncle Rico and MSU. Okay, let's head to one of my plays. I did lock this one in when it was Titans plus 3.5. We have the Browns -3 in here. Chubb hurt, and I just have major concerns about Watson. But I will say, if Watson's got anything left, this has got to be the get-right spot, because you can throw the ball against Tennessee. You can't run the ball against them very well, but you can attack their secondary. So this is where Watson should look a little bit better. I just like the Titans, man. Exactly. Like, we're talking Vrabel as a dog right here. This is a play that you and I normally go to. I was able to lock this one in at 3.5. You just look at the Titans last week against the Chargers. Pretty even box score, more first downs, pretty even in total plays, total yards. They ran the ball better. They won the time of possession 2 weeks ago. Should have beat the Saints. If it's not for a couple awful off-the-mark passes from Tannehill, I think this Titans team is a solid team. I'm going to play them in most situations where they're getting over a field goal, and I'm also playing the money line on the Titans as well. I was asked on this one. I played him at plus 3.5. I played him on the money line here. I think this is a tight game between two teams that are both teams that have a chance to make the playoffs. But I like, so far, close game. Give me the coaching staff of the Titans over the Browns. I trust Vrabel more than Stefanski right now. I trust Tannehill more than I trust Watson. And they don't have Chubb anymore. I trust Henry as the ground game to feed there a little bit more than I do with the Browns, who probably have to still get that ground game worked out with a new piece on the offensive line who's only started one game there, and a new running back, whoever is going to be taking who's ever going to be in the backfield today. So I like the Titans in here. I locked it in on the better number. I'd have no problem on the money line. I think this is a pretty back and forth tight game. It's not even like a knock on Cleveland. I think their defense is really good. This could be a really low scoring game also, Eric. It's no surprise the over under is 38 in here.
Take a deep breath, everybody. I'm not taking Vrabel as a dog here. I'm taking the Browns -3.
At once it dipped down, right? You wouldn't have 3.5 most likely.
The Vrabel stats, 3.5 is the key number. If it's anything lower than 3.5, the percentage drops off. Hunt's showing up wearing a Nick Chubb jersey to the stadium. Chubb meant so much to this team. I really think this is going to be a rally point. I think this is the game they're going to go out and really play an inspired football for him. The thing that really stands out to me is how much Tannehill was under fire last week because his offensive line couldn't protect him against the Chargers. Browns defensive line is better than the Chargers. You're going to have Smith and Garrett coming at Tannehill all day, and they're pretty good against the run. So I think they're going to be able to limit what Henry can do. Flip side, Olave, $112 week 1. Last week, Allen, $111. So you're able to throw on this Titans defense. I think this opens stuff up for Amari Cooper. I think the Browns are going to have a better success rate passing the ball than the Titans are. Hopkins banged up, didn't practice all week. I like the Browns to come up with an emotional game plan. I'll take the Browns here, minus the 3.
Okay, we got beer bet here on this one, although we're talking about it in a really important number, right? And a key number, the 3 versus the 3.5. So that's a big deal. Where do we go next, Eric? We go to the Panthers at the Seahawks. Seattle is a 5-point favorite in this game. And is it the Red Rifle, the Red Rocket, AD?
AD, and I think it's a quarterback upgrade right now.
The other AD starting today?
I think it's an upgrade right now.
I agree with you. I agree. He's
going to be able to do a lot more in the passing game. He's able to actually do a quarterback keeper, which Bryce Young is too small to do. Is crazy.
He can't even stick himself in there.
I think that they're going to be able to move the ball a lot more. I think this is going to be a great Miles Sanders game. Everyone seems to forget about Miles Sanders. And the thing to do in fantasy is there's certain running backs that may not be the marquee names, but they're the only game in town. James Conner, Miles Sanders. Those are the guys you kind of like in fantasy because they get so many targets in the volume, in the running game. They're not fighting for other people for touches. I think this is going to be a huge Miles Sanders game. I think you're going to be able to run on this team. I also bet Hayden Hurst. My first bet in this game is Hayden Hurst over 28.5 yards receiving. This has just been a thing for Seattle every single year. They can't defend the tight end position. But Laporta went over his total. I'm spacing who they played in week 1. That tight end went over his total. They struggle immensely defending the tight end. So I bet Higbee went over his total. So I bet over 28.5 for Hayden Hurst. I don't trust Geno Smith laying big numbers.
And I appreciate you adding the Smith in there. Because last time you said, I don't trust Geno. And then, man, I felt attacked. I really did.
2-6, laying a number over 3. But I didn't like Bryce Young playing in Seattle because that's a real tough place to play. As soon as I got word that Dalton was going to play, I got this number at 5.5.
Dalton was good last year. Yeah, people forget he played well.
I think that if Dalton would have played week 2, the Panthers would have won that game. Seahawks still have the injuries to the 2 tackles. The defensive line of the Panthers is good. I think it's going to be able to get home, make stuff difficult for Geno Smith, who struggles under pressure. I like the Panthers here. I locked it in at 5.5. I'm fine playing it at 5.
Yeah, you and I have not been very high on Bryce Young's prospect overall. And the key is, like, for a guy like Bryce Young, he could succeed in the league. We could be wrong. But I think if that were to happen, he needs to be in a really well set up offense with like a good offensive line, with good playmakers. He doesn't have any of that here, right? He doesn't have a great offensive line. He doesn't have guys that are going to go make plays for him. That's what's difficult. It's much better to go to a veteran like Dalton, who won't be trying to do too much, who's been there, who's done that, who knows like the spots on the field to get to. I agree with you. I've never been high on Bryce Young. That doesn't mean I'm not willing to make a change if it's in front of me. If I see the film and he's improved and he's doing well, I'm going to call it that way. But it's not going to be in this situation. It's not going to be here. I mean, just for example, look at Baker Mayfield. And it's not the same situation. It's different coaching, different everything. But that guy last year in Carolina was miserable. And this year, through a couple weeks in Tampa, even though they don't have the greatest offensive line in the world and they don't have a great running game, but they've got a pretty solid defense and a couple of good receivers, and he's looked really good through a few weeks. And that same guy looked miserable last year. A lot of it can be where you are in your setting, and that's what becomes concerning for these young quarterbacks, guys like Bryce Young, because we see what happens to like a Sam Darnold, you know? You get put in the wrong spot with wrong coaching. You get thrown out there. You get beat up early. You lose all your confidence and you never have time to develop. You know, I actually feel pretty good about Jordan Love, Eric, because of the flip side of that. I look at him and I compare him to some of the other guys. He seems like a guy who's just watched the NFL speed, right? He's been around for a couple years now. He's not just thrown into the fire and expected to make stuff happen in a bad situation. So, I agree with you. here. We're on the Carolina side. We move to an ugly one. Bears at the Chiefs. I'm on the Bears. They have not completed a pass, an intermediate pass this year. They have not completed one pass between 10 and 19 yards, only short, and then a few long passes. But I don't think the Bears have really figured out what they want to be this year. They're trying to put Justin Fields into square peg round hole. They're trying to make him into something that he's not. Does Justin Fields need to improve as a pocket passer? Does he need to get better at reading the field? Absolutely. Nobody would disagree on that. Well, Erik, it's so crazy. It's like, if I want you to do something, well, I should try to make it easier on you, not harder on you. His coaches are making it harder on him by not having him run. It makes the other team, it gives them so much of an easier way to defend Justin Fields if he's only running 2 or 3 times a game and no design runs at all. You got to mix those in. Then it opens up the field, right?
You got to give Fields, you got to put him in a position to be successful. And, we're seeing this a lot with the Bears. This is the second high quarterback that they drafted where they're just not putting him in a position to be successful. I know with me, what I'm doing here is I got the 13. Mahomes, 27, 35 and 1, 43%. ATS is a favorite of 3 and more. Home favorite, 7 or more. 14, 20 and 1, 41%. Double digits, 35%. So Mahomes historically has shown that he can't cover these big numbers. Flip side, offense hasn't looked good. Like we talked about it before. I really think missing the enemy is really having something to do with this offensive struggles. They're banged up. Taylor, they have 2 new tackles who came in. Those guys haven't looked too good. Eberflus coaching for his job. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with this Bears. It wouldn't surprise me if Fields targets the shit out of Moore.
Me too.
It's one read, and if he's not there, he just takes.
He just runs. I'm picking Fields. I've got Fields in a few DFS today. I think he's gonna run absolutely wild, based on like his comments throughout the week, where he's like, "I got to get out of my head. I got to play more me." And it's funny. People like attacked him for what he said, or like they really wanted to take it and run with it, because anytime like a player mentions a coach or coaching, they want to stir it all up and people want to make it more than it is. I thought his response was like incredibly honest, like he gave us an answer that we want from athletes. We always get mad when athletes don't give us an honest, thoughtful answer. You could tell he thought the entire night about like what he was going to say and and he really did. And he wasn't like, man, my coaches are terrible. He went through this whole thing and he said, yeah, it might be a few things. It might be coaching, which is true. He's probably getting told a few different things from a few different people and it's pulling him different ways. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with the Fields rushing prop in here if you wanted to go that way. To me, this feels like that game. It's a little narrative-y too, but it does feel like that game. And with Fields and with this big number, I mean, we could be wrong. Kansas City could be dominating this game. They could be up by 17, and we could get a garbage touchdown and cover and win.
Oh, yeah. This could easily be backdoor all the way.
4 games left. We go to one of – I hate it when they do this, Erik. I got to say, I hate it when they only have a few afternoon games. I know it's because of the double Monday night. I don't know why they don't spread it out a little bit better. Like, look at the 3 games that are afternoon games today. Panthers, Seahawks, Bears, Chiefs, and Cowboys, Cardinals. Normally when they do that, it's because there's like Chiefs, Bills, right? And there's a big primetime game or like a big marquee game that they want everyone to watch. I can't believe they don't, like, these are bad games to have as your only 3 games for your afternoon games. Dallas Cowboys, Cardinals, 12.5-point line here. Cowboys are going to be without one of their key defensive key defensive pieces. Say that one 10 times fast. Diggs is out. So again, Their defense is still good, but already, Eric, that's just what makes their defense so impressive is they've got 7 or 8 guys on the defensive line that they can rotate in, honestly. Yeah. They've got probably 5 guys that are better than 20 teams have one. No joke. But then what's key is they've got 2 guys in the secondary that are really solid. If you take one of those guys out, all of a sudden, they're a little more imperfect, right? All of a sudden, you can start to get at them. I will say, I've been a little bit impressed with the Cardinals' defense, especially through 3 halves. Week 1, they were really solid against the Commanders. Week 2, they were solid to start the game. And then you wonder, with a team like Arizona, they get up big and then they just crater. Remember, this team doesn't want to win. I'm not saying the players late in the game aren't tackling and stuff like that, but you just saw a different sense of energy, scheme, a little bit of everything late in that game. But Dobbs was not awful. Connor's been pretty solid. I don't know if this team's is if they're going to be worse offensively than maybe the Giants or the Jets were. It's not like those teams did a whole lot. I'm not laying this number with Dallas. I know a lot of people would be too. If anything, I would be on the Arizona side here.
Dak Prescott is the second best quarterback. ATS is the favorite as a league. When the number gets over 7, 68.7%.
Beats up on the bad teams, right? Dak does, huh?
Look, I want nothing to do here. Cardinals better coach than we thought. All those videos were coming out, how awkward their coach looked in the meetings and everything. And you know what? He's done a good job.
Yes.
They're better than I thought. I will sit this one out. I think the play is in DFS, Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is the most targeted tight end in the NFL right now, and no one seems to be talking about it.
And the game script for them, you're 12-point underdog. You're down, right? You're most likely going to need to be coming back. You're going to need to be throwing the ball.
He's insanely undervalued. I absolutely like it.
We've got a play here from Sportsback. Cooper to have over 100 yards, plus 475. Watson to have over 300. See, this is the game to attack that because they don't have Chubb and they're playing a bad secondary that's allowed 300 yards multiple weeks. So I could absolutely see this being the week to attack that. And Eric, just to kind of hit on your point, we were talking about Arizona. I know it's only 2 weeks, but if we're just using like advanced metrics, Arizona is 18th in DVOA. And most people would have projected Arizona to be the worst team in the league this year. Yeah. So they're close to average instead of being the worst. And that's the difference here is I think they're just a little bit better than the common perception of them is. If you're playing this game and you feel the need to play it, I would only play it on the Arizona side, but I'm not. I've got plenty more games on the board, plenty more things to play, plenty more places to play. Eric, let's get to Sunday Night Football. Steelers at the Raiders. We've got the Raiders now as a straight 3-point favorite, and that would be the number for me to jump in on Pittsburgh because of these two teams, the unit I trust the most is the Pittsburgh defense. I think I know what I'm going to get from them the most with Watt, with a good defensive front, with putting pressure on a team. I think Pittsburgh probably feels pretty good about themselves right now, being 1-1 after a game when they didn't run one play in the red zone. They won a game when they did not run a play in the red zone last week. They won a game they probably should not have won. They had -7 yards of offense in the fourth quarter. I don't know if the Raiders are going to be able to run the ball against Pittsburgh. They haven't been able to run the ball very well this year. Jacobs had -2 yards last week on 9 carries. So if they can't run the ball and all of a sudden they become one-dimensional, Jimmy G was graded quarterback 25 on the week last week. He's not targeting Renfro at all. Myers had a concussion 2 weeks ago, and Adams was in the concussion protocol. So the Raiders' strength is supposed to be their offense. All of their offensive playmakers and big pieces have question marks or haven't looked fantastic through 2 weeks. So once this jumped to 3, I'm definitely in on Pittsburgh at this number. Eric. I probably was going to be close playing Pittsburgh money line and even less than that. But now at the 3, I'm diving in on the Pittsburgh side. Talk to us if you have any stand in this game.
Steelers are the only team in the NFL with less red zone appearances than the Chicago Bears. Offense has been putrid. I'm not a Kenny Pickett guy. I'm not a Kenny Pickett guy. Can their line stop Crosby, Wilson, the pass rush? The Raiders are going to go on. This game has moved 4 points. This game was Raiders getting 1. Now it's Steelers +3.
That's weird. A lot of big boy money. Is weird, right? Because is there anything like player-wise that would have moved it like this? Missing guys out? Anything like that?
Pickett has looked awful. I
agree. He's looked terrible.
Awful. And then you look at the Steelers splits when there's no Hayward, they just can't stop the run. I know Watt's great, but Watt really struggles defending the run. And when Hayward's not out there, you're able to run over the Steelers team all day. We saw it. Ford literally hasn't been getting any reps. Like third or second run, he broke off that big one. I think this is a good Josh Jacobs bounce back game. Maybe look to play some of his props. Maybe look to play some Warren props for the Steelers. You can pass on this Raiders team. Maybe look at Harris or Warren, some receiving props. But in terms of side, that's a pretty big move. I don't want any involvement. I'll probably play some props in this game, and that's it.
There are 37 quarterbacks that have taken some snaps and that have qualified based on Pro Football Focus metrics and grades so far. Kenny Pickett is graded as quarterback 35 of those 37. The only 2 behind him are Aaron Rodgers, who had 2 passing attempts, and Bryce Young. Those are the only 2 guys that have graded worse than him through a few weeks. And I got to tell you, that passes the eye test too, right? Because sometimes when you look at the advanced metrics, they can be a little fudgy. You point this out when I'll talk about PFF sometimes and grading or certain things. You have to know some of the weaknesses, or maybe some of the, not necessarily weaknesses, but some of the holes in the advanced metrics that you look at, right? Because some of them don't take certain things into account. Others will take certain things into account. But I got to say, watching it, I was so much higher on Kenny Pickett than what he's looked through 2 games. And I didn't even think he was going to be great. And you were not at all. But man, the way he looked in the preseason was so much different than this. And I know it was not against competition, but it was just a comfortable, a confident. He does not look like that guy at all right now. And that's scary. This is another one of those games where, I mean, the total is only 43.5. We've got some low totals this week, and this could be a low scoring game. It could be. Like, both of these teams could have a tough time stringing together long drives with the way their offenses have been playing so poorly, Eric. It's solid defense, but more like inept offenses right now with both of these teams.
Offenses look brutal, just completely brutal. There was one comment I wanted to get to.
Look at this. This is basically like, Eric, you know, when it's basically like a body snatcher. You know what I mean? Somebody came in, they took your body. It's like, how do you know Eric's kidnapped? He's not betting the Tomlin dog, but he gave you the point, right? It's the 3.5. That's the key.
Yeah, it's the 3.5.
It's that hook.
There was a question in terms of this one. Look, this is a 4-point move. So obviously that tells me something's going on that I'm not seeing or not aware of.
Me too. So that's weird.
I don't want to get involved in this. In terms of the Brown spot, I got 3. Gino got 3.5. This is still at 3.5.
That's a huge difference.
I would be on the Titans, but at 3.
But you would at least not be on the Browns.
Correct.
Playing it, right? Because that's the key. Sometimes it's not necessarily would I be on that team or that team. It's I'd be on that side of the number or just not at all. You know? Yeah. And like that's how it comes down to a lot of.
We got a question a while ago. Spirit 22 asked about the Fields over the 60.5 yards rushing. And then a little while that one right there.
Yep.
I kind of like that one. Like if you're going to, because I'm looking at it right now, it's -120. The other ones are at plus money.
So you go like a unit, then like 3/4 of a unit, half unit, all the way through, right?
Yeah. So go a third. So if you're going to put 1 unit on the over 60.5, go a third, a third, a third. You'll get better money.
Yep. I agree with that. I like that. And you're right. So Do we call him a carny now? That was the Austin Powers thing, right? Carny folks, small hands, smell like cabbage. That's going to be our nickname for Bryce Young, the carny with the small hands there. But that's one that we will give you credit when credit's due. You were all over that one. Still early. I mean, the guy can change, but what we predicted was right now in that situation, he was not going to be successful based on what was there and what was around. And so, that's a great point. Let's make some money. 69. Couple more games, Eric. We go to the 2 Monday night football games. We've got the Eagles at the Bucks. The Eagles are 2-0 and the Bucks are 2-0. The Eagle, I got to say, if you're just talking about teams who have looked more impressive in their games, Tampa has been visually more that way, I think, because of perception. We didn't expect Tampa to be very good this year. I think their win total was 6. They've already got 2 versus the Philly Eagles, where we expect them to be one of the best teams in the league. Even though they've won 2 games, they haven't looked like one of the best teams in the league. So we're looking at them, picking holes in them. And that's what I'm going to do here, Eric. I mean, the Philadelphia offense right now, they're still figuring things out. Again, I want to give you credit. You pointed out they've got 2 new coordinators, right? Brand new offensive coordinator, brand new defensive coordinator. So the coordinators who had a lot of success with Hurts over the last year and a half, they're not there. They're still figuring things out. You can see that Hurts is not comfortable yet. He has not been great down the field. They're not getting air yards at all. For example, A.J. Brown, he has one. So far, all of his receptions have been 9 air yards or fewer. I think he has one that's like right around 9. So everything is short. They're not getting down the field really at all. Secondary's not in great shape for the Eagles. Also, between Bradbury, Blankenship, Maddox got hurt. The backups got torched. Darius Slay was covering Jefferson for a lot of last week. 11 catches for 159 yards. Baker's had a really good chemistry so far with Mike Evans. God, Eric, I got to get down on my knees right now. I am just giving you credit for all of these things because you had Mike Evans early on in the offseason also. So I promise, folks, don't get grossed out by all the love that's happening right here. But good work on that one. And I think you're on the right side on this one, right? I think we're on the same side on this one too with playing Tampa at home. Good defense, getting more than a field goal. Philly's offense struggling a little bit on the road. I could see this game being like a field goal-ish game. So I'm taking Tampa in here plus the points.
Yeah, I took Tampa here. I got them plus the 5. Eagles have injuries. Back 4 is insanely banged up. Evans and Godwin are going to have their way. They are counting on some young players. Because they're counting on these young players, I really think that the Eagles are that Tampa is going to be able to exploit them. You mentioned Hurts. Hurts has happy feet in the pocket, not getting his feet set, just doesn't look right. New play callers are having a hard time adjusting. Look, if this was in week 12, week 13, I'd probably look to take the Eagles or stay away from this game. But at week 3, I'm going to be looking to take the Bucks here. Give credit to Mayfield. He's looked insanely good in the
graded as quarterback number 3 through 2 weeks by PFF. And I will say those metrics don't like him in that he's never been a good advanced metrics guy. Like he's usually, even when he's played well for the Browns and those teams were winning, Baker was farther down that list. He was always like 15, 18, 20 as far as where he graded. So it's been a good couple of weeks for him. It really has.
Yeah, he's looked great. Bucks are good against the run. I think Swift is going to come back down to Hurts. Brown.
This is true. You're betting, and Eric pointed this out earlier in the week. He said, I've got a couple quarterbacks this week that I don't love and that are going to be on my card. Minshew mania, and he's going to be cooking it up with Baker. Can we get some bacon and eggs this morning, Eric? Can you cook it up for us, please?
I hate it. I absolutely love doing it. But look, you do what you got to do here. You try to make some money.
That's how we know Eric is a real gambler and someone who puts his money where his mouth is. And even for all of the critiques you will have against certain players, next week, if the number is right, you would line right up and bet Bryce Young.
Yep. For me, it's just about making money. I really don't care who the quarterback is. If I can get a good line, I'll bet the line.
Yep. let's finish up, Eric. We've got Monday Night Football. Then we're going to get to parlay play real quick and a parlay for Sunday. Monday Night Football. It's starting to sound now like Burrow is going to play. The number is sort of holding around 2.5, so that way they can kind of play it safe right there. Looking at these two teams, the Bengals have really struggled so far through 2 games. Burrow's been hurt. They've not been able to get their offense humming. They've not been able to get Chase the ball. It was his second game with less than 40 receiving yards. He only had one of those games last year where he had less than 40 receiving yards. But this is a massive game for the Bengals to try to not go to 0-3. Flip side, man, the Rams are so much better and more competitive than I thought. You tried to talk me down off the ledge before the season started. You said they'd be a little bit better than I was expecting, and they are. Mainly because when they're healthy and they have like all their pieces out there, they have some adults in the room, right? They've got McVay, they've got Stafford, they've got Aaron Donald. So right off the bat, you've got a good quarterback. Man, you think Stafford is going to be uncomfortable in this situation that he's in right now? This dude had some tough years in Detroit.
No, he's been there. He's done that.
He's been in some bad situations with bad offensive lines and bad rosters where he's gotten sacked and beat up. This is nothing for him.
I think the big thing here is this. Obviously, tough to know what to do with no Burrow. This line was at 7, down to 1.5, 2. No one really knows what's going on. Chase has gone on record by saying he doesn't think he's going to play. Bengals back 4 has been awful. I really think them losing Bates, et cetera, in the back 4 has really hurt this defense. The defensive line and Hendricks and Ritter isn't getting the push historically it's gotten.
Their first touchdown last week came on a punt return, too.
I just
you know what I mean?
To me, look, I missed the 7. I'm kicking myself last Sunday night for not taking the 7.
It was 7, and that's how much it's moved. And two, that's another great point is that
not taking it. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit away. I'm just going to sit this one out.
We saw yesterday in college football a bunch of those lines and numbers that moved. If you were not on the right side of that, you probably lost. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of numbers that moved like 2-3 points within a week. And this is one. This is another one where it's moved a lot. Like I feel like the Rams are the right side in this game, but they're not at the right number anymore. That's my problem. So I can't play this game right now because just like Eric said, if you missed it all the way from where it was last week and then it went down through 3 into 2.5, now I really can't play it there. But what I can do, Eric, is I can get involved in some parlay play, and I can get involved in a parlay that I have today with a couple props that I put together. And then there's a free contest each and every week. If you go to ParlayPlay.io and you sign up, use our promo code NFL Betting Blitz, they will match your first deposit. And Eric, it'll help give us a little bit of love. NFL Betting Blitz is the promo code. Why I like this site, why you introduced me to it, and we were playing around with it for a few weeks. What I like is how different and unique the parlays are, things that you can combine and put together. So, for example, you can actually parlay the amount of fantasy points someone will have in a game as a prop. It's one of the choices. So for me, here's a look at the pick'em that I put together today. I pointed out Bijan Robinson. I went 17 fantasy points because Bijan is so versatile. Bijan catches passes out of the backfield. Bijan breaks runs. Bijan has the ability to get this in like 1 or 2 touches, honestly, with his game-breaking skill. And I like it because it's not necessarily because of his versatility. I could see him have games where he has like 10 carries for 55 yards, but then 5 receptions for 60 yards, right? Like he could have games where it's spread out between receptions and carries and a touchdown or 2. So I think fantasy points really encompasses everything for Bijan well, because he's going to get a lot of touches, right? In a PPR situation where the more touches you're getting, the more you're getting paid out. I absolutely love Bijan in that spot. And in particular today against the Lions, I think the Lions defense is better. They're improved, but I'm not necessarily scared of the Lions defense there. I think Bijan is the play, and I'm going to hook Bijan up with Nico Collins. We pointed out the Texans. What have they been doing well, Eric? They've been throwing the ball down the field. They've been targeting Nico Collins big time, and he's been getting incredible downfield targets, like really solid A-dot. So to me, I'm going to parlay these two together. I put them together for $10. My payout would be $30.
I like it. The one I went to Amari Cooper to have over 61.5 yards receiving. I mentioned how the Titans give up the third most yards to opposing wide receivers. Olave 112, Allen 111. I think with how good the Titans defensive line is, this is going to lead to Watson throwing the ball more. Cooper is a clear number one. So I like him to go over the 61.5 yards receiving. And the next one, look, I just did Miles Sanders over 60.5 rushing yards.
And real quick, what I like is they've got the search button here too.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like really quick. You just type in Sanders and then boom, you got Miles Sanders up. It's very user friendly, this website. It's super easy. Like I got it, just figured it out after doing it just a couple times on like how to navigate through. I'm sure there's still going to be questions you have, but it's not one of those sites where you're like clicking on things. You're wondering why it's not going, it's not working. It's very, very simple to navigate through. And if you ever have a problem and you need some help, reach out to Erik and I, and we can help you if you're ever confused or you're sort of caught up in a certain spot.
Yeah, I think it's easy to lose, easy withdraw. I did Sanders, only game in town you can run on Seattle. Look, if you don't trust Miles Sanders, you can go Hayden Hurst here. You can go Kyle Pitts here. But I like the Miles Sanders one just because of how he's the only game in town. So I did those two over, and those were the two I parlayed together.
Okay, Erik, I'm gonna ride with you. We're gonna go $5 here. We're gonna lock that in. So our $5 play, Amari Cooper over 61.5 receiving yards, Miles Sanders over 60.5 rushing yards. $5 would get us back 15. And then again, very simple. You go to track your picks, and boom, my two parlays are up right here. My track picks that are active. So I've got a parlay. Erik's got a parlay. Maybe you guys are stuck in between paydays, right? Maybe payday is at the end of the month, and that's next week where you'll probably get your paycheck. But you want to have a little bit of action right now. They got free play here, Erik. They got a free play.
Yeah.
Each and every week. A free-to-play game with $150 in prizes. And, yep. I mean, what's nice is they pay all the way down to the 50th spot for $1. And if you win $1, you can come back here and parlay something for $1.
Yep.
So if, again, we've all been there. I'm not acting like I haven't been there or I'm not there where you have bad weeks and you've got bills that come in, the car breaks down, something happens, a bunch of money that you're not expecting gets taken. And so you're stuck, you're in between, but you've handicapped, you've done the work, you're still watching. You'd love to be able to get a little bit of action or maybe see what you can do to not have to invest a whole lot that particular week. Man, I love the free plays here. And we can kind of roll through some of the free plays. What do you think for Lamar, Erik? What did you have for his range of passing yards?
228 to 262.
You went a little higher today. I was the one right below you. So we're both in the similar type range. I went 194 to 227. Erik, 228 to 226 or to 262. Oh, you know what, Erik? This is also a little bit like, and it's a great, it reminds me what's coming back this week at Santa Anita, the Pick'em contest.
Yeah.
Those Pick'em contests are back. They're free to play. They'll be back this weekend. And that's the same type of thing we have here. Where did you go for Watson passing yards?
Over 309.
Okay, so you went with the big number there because we talked, it's a bad secondary. This has got to be a game for him to sort of step up and say, look, I've still got something left. I'm still shaking off the rust. Bijan, I went less than 70 rushing yards because of what I was talking about. I think Bijan with Algier back there, Bijan catches passes as well. I could see him in like the 55, 60 rushing yards range and then another 50-ish receiving yards. I went under. What about for you?
For Bijan, I went over.
And again, anyone that's going over with Bijan, that's not a problem at all. Where do we go for Etienne though? I'm under. I
went over just because of the weather and also
the template of the game. They get up.
Oh, no, like Texas just have really struggled stopping the run. And they're not using Tank Bisbee as much as I thought they would.
So Etienne over. Eric and I will go our separate ways on this one. How about for Metcalf? Metcalf for the Seahawks, his number that they have 63.5 receiving yards.
I'm going to go under at this one. I think Seattle's really going to struggle moving the ball.
Seattle playing the Panthers, kind of a weird template of a game. This was one of my more difficult ones. I think I went slightly over, but I wouldn't sell anyone on over more than under in here. I just lean over with DK. I'm going to go under with Lamb. Now, this scares me because McCarthy's been a coach that's had Lamb get targeted a little bit more often, but I do think that with the way that the game script is for this game, I don't know if the Cowboys are going to have to be throwing a lot late in the game. So I think it could be a bigger game, more of a Pollard game where they have to run the clock out a little. I went under. How about for you?
I like the under too. I think game flow is really going to have something to do with it.
And then Justin Fields, passing yards, what's his range going to be? I went the 197 to 222, right in that range.
I went 171 to 196. I think
so. We're both pretty close. Eric's one range below mine. We finish up Jimmy G. I went 167 to 202. The Steelers defense, I think they'll put a little bit of pressure on him. I haven't seen Jimmy G have all that much chemistry yet with his receivers. I thought this could be a low scoring game too.
Steelers a little banged up in the secondary. I did the 203 to 237.
So Eric just went one slot higher than us. So even in a lot of these where we're not on the same, we're pretty close in the same range. And then once you lock your play in, you are all set. A free play each and every Sunday over at ParlayPlay.io.
Make sure you hit submit.
Make sure you hit submit. I've already submitted mine, so you can see my team is set and ready, and you can go track your picks and check out how your parlays are doing. Eric, good stuff again, my friend. Week 3 NFL. We are all ready for it. Good luck to everyone putting together your DFS lineups. And we will be back here. Let's see. Eric and I will be back on Wednesday night. We'll record our first look at all the week 4 games. Then we'll be back on Friday for DRF Sportsbooks, the winning ticket. And then we'll be back here on Sunday, 11 o'clock a.m. for NFL Betting Blitz. Good luck to you, buddy. Hope you have a great Sunday.
You too, my man. Let's make some money.
Good luck out there, everyone.